President Trump. He alleged that in the India-US trade deal, the interests of farmers, small businesses, and India's energy security had been compromised. The BJP hit back with a blast from the past, saying that in 2008, when the UPA was in power, they were even willing to give up India's nuclear sovereignty by agreeing to American and international inspections of our nuclear sites. So the big question is, who surrendered? Was it the UPA in 2008 in the Indo-US nuclear deal, for which Manmohan Singh was willing to stake his government? Or is it Mr. Modi and his government in the India-US trade framework that has now been accepted after 6 months of bickering and back and forth between Washington and Delhi? So it's a question of, is it surrender or is it, as they say in this day and age, dhurandhar?
I am saying that you have sold India. Are you not ashamed of selling India? Yes. Do you have no shame of selling India? You have sold our mother, Bharat Mata. Do you have no shame?
राहुल जी ने कहा कि हमारा देश, भारत देश को आपने सेल कर दिया है। मैं सदन में कहना चाहता हूं, आज तक कोई माई के लाल पैदा नहीं हुआ जो भारत को सेल कर सकता है, कोई खरीद सकता है, नहीं हो सकता है।
Well, it's not just the government. Even the United States has affirmed that agriculture has been shielded by India. In fact, there was some confusion and a revision of the fact sheet that was put out by the US White House, particularly with regarding to agriculture. There was this phrase about certain pulses, which seems to have now been removed, and it's now aligned with the joint statement that was issued last week. So India's deal with the US is as per what has been agreed between both parties. The earlier version did mention that India will reduce tariffs on certain pulses, but now the new version does not mention anything about pulses at all. And of course, pulses are a sensitive subject here in India. The price of it is also a sensitive factor, and the fact that a large number of farmers grow it is also a sensitive factor. The older version also mentioned that India is committed to buying $500 billion worth of American goods. This has again been a lot of back and forth around this $500 billion. How can we get to $500 billion? We're currently only importing about $45 billion worth of American goods. But the new one has also removed the phrase agriculture, so no agricultural products are part of the $500 billion. It only mentions energy, ICT, coal, etc., aircraft and aircraft parts. But even on India's overall commitment, the wording has been changed back to what it was from India has committed to buy. It has now been reworded back to India intends to buy. It is an intention, and if it is not able to keep up with that intention, it's not going to get penalized for the same. There's also the question of digital service tax removal. The new fact sheet says that will be negotiated. The digital tax service is the tax on some of the big tech companies like Google, Facebook, etc. And finally, on the question of Russian oil, earlier there was no mention of Russian oil. Now it accepts that India will stop buying Russian oil. India, of course, has always maintained that India's energy security is a sovereign decision. So who India buys oil from, how much India buys oil from person A or B or C, country A, B or C, that is something that is India's sovereign decision.
You have opened the door. You have opened the door to mechanized American farms, thousands and thousands of acres each farm. You have opened the door to crush our poor farmers.
किसानों की सुरक्षा को पूर्णतः ध्यान में रखकर ही यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स ऑफ अमेरिका के साथ बातचीत हुई, फैसले हुए, और ये भारत के सभी किसानों को मैं पूरी तरीके से आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि उनके हित सुरक्षित हैं.
So as the Congress accuses the centre of compromising on India's farmers, on India's small and medium businesses, and in fact even on India's energy security and sovereignty, the government has now turned the tables, saying that if you go back to when the UPA was in power in 2008, and this was also a famous deal at that time, the India-US nuclear deal, Manmohan Singh had in fact staked the fate of his government and had won that vote very narrowly because of support from the Samajwadi Party and the BSP at that time. Gregory Schultz, who was the then US ambassador to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, had said in July of 2008 that New Delhi had committed to submit its entire civil nuclear program to international inspection. The former ambassador said that New Delhi had committed to separate its military and civil nuclear activities and also committed to submitting its entire civil nuclear program to international inspection. So who traded with who, or who gave up India's secrets and India's sovereignty? That question is now being countered and put back to the opposition, and particularly to the Congress and to Rahul Gandhi. So while political barbs were flying thick and fast in Parliament, the question again boils down to, have we negotiated the best deal possible? Who has sold out who? And most importantly, can we now get on with it? Because we've had 6 months of awful bickering, almost an appending of the India-US strategic partnership. After much negotiation, after much back and forth, India finally has a deal which has competitive tariff rates compared to all our peers. Can we now get on with the business of exporting and importing? Tuhin Sinha is joining us, national spokesperson of the BJP. Anand Srinivasan is spokesperson of the Congress Party. Ashok Sajanhar, former diplomat. Ajay Bagga is a market expert who's joining us. Let me start with you, Tuhin. Mr. Rahul Gandhi today says the deal risks crushing Indian farmers by opening up the agriculture sector. He says 18% tariffs are disproportionate. Before Mr. Trump, our average tariff rate was 3%. India did not negotiate on an equal footing. He also says that, for example, Bangladesh has managed to get a better deal in textiles if it's manufactured out of US imported cotton. So you basically, and the words Mr. Gandhi used were, Mr. Modi's government has sold out India, has sold out Bharat Mata. Please respond.
Well, good evening, Shraddha. Good evening, everybody. Rahul Gandhi today spoke in detail about, grip, choke, and tap politics, which essentially is a euphemism for his fakery, which he has been employing in the last several years without any gains. Now, when he talks about the budget, clearly he has not read the budget. He says that India has not made any provisions for supply chains, whereas the Indian Semiconductor Mission 2.0, as well as the rare earth corridor spanning 4 states, is precisely to address this concern. So he clearly does not seem to have read the budget. He talks about India selling data, whereas the biggest impetus has been given in this budget to data localization, which he again does not.
All right, we've just lost the audio.
All
right, go on. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah, go on.
The rights of our farmers. I think it needs to be very clearly told to him that India's farm sector, India's poultry sector is completely protected. There are barely 4 to 6 items which include red sorghum, which includes tree nuts, which includes dried distilleries grains, which includes fresh processed fruits, which would get a lower tariff.
Okay.
Barring that, the entire agriculture sector, the entire poultry sector stands protected. And even over there, the total tree nut imports to India was to the tune of $1 billion, which is, $1 billion of the total $1.7 billion agricultural dollar. So imagine, Indian farm, the imports, which will enjoy a lesser tariff of barely 4 to 6.
Okay, so let me ask Mr. Anand Srinivasan, agriculture is protected. This is the best deal that you could have got compared to all our neighboring countries, peer countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, etc. This is the best tariff rate you could have got. And India was one of the few countries that held out, that negotiated with Mr. Trump, did not succumb to Mr. Trump's bullying. And finally, you have this deal. And on every point that Mr. Gandhi has raised, on agriculture, on energy security, on data, all of those, the government has today countered.
No, where have they countered? There is a very famous acronym in America going around called Taco Trump. In the morning, what was put out as a fact sheet, after Mr. Gandhi spoke and blistering speech, Taco Trump changed it and put out one more fact sheet. For all you know, tomorrow morning we may have a third fact sheet. So let us not take this as the final fact sheet. Let us look at the agreement. Let the agreement be signed. First of all, we have surrendered in the budget itself, we have surrendered the data protection completely, and you have allowed foreigners to access your data. We have already agreed to cap, the word has been used, is in the second term, to cap our digital taxes. And as of now, whatever the Department of Agriculture, Secretary of Agriculture of the United States has said, that India has agreed to import a lot of agricultural produce.
No. That was much before the joint
that
statement came out, sir. Sir, let's be very clear with the facts. The
No,
joint
no, they
statement
change-
came
they-
out last Saturday
every
morning.
4 hours there's a change.
Brooke Rollins's
Allow
tweet
me-
came out
allow me
last
to-
Tuesday.
allow me-
No,
there is
no,
no
one
joint
second, please.
statement.
Let's be
There is no joint
factual.
statement.
Let's debate on facts.
No, no,
The
just-
four
you should allow
items,
me to
the
speak.
four
If you want
items.
to
Sir,
keep on speaking, why do you
no,
call
no,
me?
sir, because you
allow
because
the
you put out
gentleman without
because you put out
interruption.
because you
No,
put
no,
out a
no,
wrong
listen
fact
to
to
me.
our viewers.
You allowed
No.
the
I-
other gentleman to
I
speak.
no,
without interrupting.
I rebutted him also. All
No,
I'm
you
saying
allow
is
me to
allow
finish
me
and then
10
rebut.
seconds to correct the facts. Number one, there are 4 items that have been exempted under agriculture.
No.
Tree
They have not been
nuts,
exempted.
soybean
There is
oil,
no deed
certain
that-
fruits,
please understand, Raka,
and red
this is a
sorghum
fact
and
sheet.
DDG,
Allow me to
dried
finish.
distilled grain. These are the 5 items that have been exempted as far as agriculture is concerned.
But
Everything
listen to
else is protected. Now, please go on.
No.
Okay, what?
There is no word saying, listen to me,
Hmm.
there is no word in the fact sheet saying the rest of the items are protected. It is an assumption. You are assuming that it is
No.
protected. Tomorrow another fact sheet can come, as it has happened in the case of South Korea, where he has gone back and said, you have not done what you promised to do. And the Indian side and the US side have to sign an agreement together. What is being proposed is a fact sheet that is being put out by America. There is no a joint statement.
No, I'm
At
reading
this
from
point
the
of
joint
time,
statement that was
listen to
released
me,
on
listen to
Saturday
me.
morning. These
Listen
are the
to
4
me.
items,
Let
agricultural
Saturday morning
items
come.
that have been exempt. Everything else is protected.
Let
Rice,
us-
wheat,
let
maize,
Saturday
poultry,
morning
everything.
Let Saturday morning come. Today, as of today, you do not. If every 4 hours this President Trump can change what he is saying,
Okay.
as of today, we do not. As we speak, there is no joint agreement signed.
Okay, so let me ask the
have
experts.
a-
Let
listen
me
to me
ask
finish.
let me ask
Let me finish.
Ashok sir, it's been 8
Wait,
minutes since
let
I
me
began the
finish.
debate. I've
You
only
have-
been with the
you
political
have a
spokespersons.
business
Let me please go.
framework agreement.
Let me please go
That's
to
all you
the diplomats and to the market expert. Ashok Sajjanhar, let me ask you, sir. What would you say to those people who say, and including Mr. Gandhi, he said that in his speech today, oh, the tariffs before Mr. Trump were 3%, we are now at 18%, it's higher than Europe, it's higher than South Korea, Japan. What are we celebrating?
Thank you very much, Zaka. 2 points let me make here very quickly. Number one, the tariffs might be higher than the UK, tariffs might be higher than the European Union, but they are lower than our competitors. Who are our competitors? They are Bangladesh, they are Pakistan, they are Vietnam, they are Malaysia, they are Indonesia. They are lower than all. What we compete with them is textiles, is apparel, is footwear, leather, gems and jewelry, also in terms of some chemicals, etc. We are lower, we are more competitive than all of those. We are not competing in these areas with Japan or ROK or UK. The second point, as far as tariffs are concerned, Zaka, I think everyone knows tariffs are paid not by the exporters. Tariffs are paid by the consumers in the United States. So, they are being required to pay more, which is going to the US government. The Indian exporters or the Indian government have nothing to do. They don't have to pay anything extra. So I think all this argument is a very lame argument. It does not have legs to stand upon. So I think this is just arguments being made for the sake of arguments. And we have come out in a much better position.
So, sir,
Whether
one of
it
the
is
things he
that-
made today, one of the arguments he made today was on the case of textiles. He says Bangladesh signed a deal after us, but Bangladesh has been given a clause where if it is made out of US imported cotton yarn, then it faces 0% tariffs in the United States, and that India will be stuck, or Indian textile exporters will be stuck with 18%.
No, the point is, you have to get the yarn from the United States. You look at the transportation cost, you look at the cost of the yarn. If it was, so favorable to make textiles with the yarn from the United States, the Bangladesh and the others would have also started doing it already. But it is not competitive. It'll be highly uncompetitive for them to get the yarn from there, get the cotton from there. Without the Indian yarn, they will not really be able to make competitive goods. And there also, they are being required to pay 19%. Whatever is the tariff that has been brought down to 19%.
Okay.
So they will not be able to withstand the
So
competition.
let me ask Ajay Bagga this. Clearly the market view, Mr. Bagga, has been that this lack of a deal for the last 6 months was a pain point. It was hurting our exporters. A lot of FPIs and FIIs also pulled out of India through much of 2025. But ever since this deal got announced, I think the very next day, the markets went up over 2,000 points. I think it's holding on to much of those gains. So the markets clearly have welcomed this deal, even if there is pain of 18%. So shouldn't there be a consensus, a political consensus, Mr. Bagga, whether this deal is good for us or not? Mr. Gandhi says Mr. Modi has sold out India to America. Mr. Modi's party says this is the best deal that anybody could have got under the circumstances. What is the actual reality? What is the economic reality of this deal?
Yeah, Jacob, thanks very much for bringing out the economic reality. I would like to state that Korea had an FTA with the US, which was a 0% FTA. After their negotiations, they are at 15% now. US exports to Korea at 0. Korea gets 15%, plus it has to invest $350 billion into the US. Japan has to invest $750 billion and it gets 15%. European Union has signed up for $750 billion of energy purchases, which it doesn't consume right now, for getting 15%. Australia, which had an FTA, Zaka, of 0%, has been saddled with 15%, even though the US has a surplus with Australia. Australia gets more US goods than it sends to US. Still, it has been saddled with 15%. Coming to Russian trade, India-Russia trade is $63 billion. China-Russia trade is $245 billion. They dared not touch China with any punitive tariffs. We were singled out for punitive tariffs. So when there was no trade, everyone was saying this government is not able to deliver a trade. When there is a trade, we are saying, oh, you have sold out at 18%. When FTAs have been from 0, they have been moved to 15. You think 18 is a bad decision? Second, on all the points that were brought up, on agriculture, we sent $6.5 billion to the US. They send us $2 billion. There is no capacity right now of sending us soya and maize and all, because we are quite self-sufficient. We are in fact surplus. We will not go and buy from them even if they try to sell. You look at digital services, that thing has been removed. Everybody has missed that. In last night's change, they have said a mutually agreeable agreement will be formed on the entire digital ecosystem. Digital tax has not been removed. That also is
because
gone.
today Mr. Gandhi also said the biggest asset that Indians have is Indians' data. And if the dollar needs to remain strong, then Mr. Trump needs to be told that we won't give you Indians' data on a cheap basis. Help us make sense of it. I mean, what's the connection between Indian data, the trade deal, and the dollar being strong?
No, definitely there is nothing on the dollar. And in fact, Trump wants a weak dollar to increase his competitiveness. So his unstated policy is to weaken the dollar and to become more competitive. Indian data going out is a misnomer. We have been talking about localizing the data centers. In fact, you look at Zaka, 22 years of tax holiday has been given to Indian data center operators. So an Indian data center operator today is incentivized to put up a data center, and all cloud services offered by MNCs have to use this Indian data center. So where will that data go out then? We are the only country which banned TikTok. US has still got TikTok. Europe is still talking about it. We went and banned it because we realized China was taking out data. Okay. So I think these things beyond the rhetoric, and that's why market is saying very good for manufacturing, very good for auto. And finally, on the Bangladesh deal, Zaka, people don't understand, Bangladesh doesn't have yarn or fabric processing. They can make garments. You give them fabric, they stitch the garments. India, out of $16 billion of cotton to fabric that Bangladesh takes every year, 9 billion is China, 6 billion is India, 240 million is US. That there is a natural risk there. It takes months for that US cotton to come with all the shipment issue, and you have to process it into fabric, which factories are not there in Bangladesh, nor do they have the money. So this is a misnomer that 0%. In fact, it's opened something for us. We take US cotton, Zaka. We can go back tomorrow and say, for all your yarn and cotton, I'm happy, I'm taking as much and you give me 0% because we have the capacity.
Okay. Tween Sinha, the 2 points where it's not just the opposition, but some experts have also criticized the government is one, what is this business about committing to not buying Russian oil? Today, the oil minister said we've made no such commitment. It's a sovereign decision. India will decide where it gets the best as far as India's energy security is concerned, whether you purchase from country A or B or C. Yet the Americans are saying that, look, there's data to show that India has cut down its Russian energy supply and they've made a commitment to completely move away from Russian energy. The second one is this $500 billion of purchases. Currently, India is purchasing at $45 billion of American goods. Even if it is over 5 years, how and where will you purchase $500 billion of American goods? And is this not economic coercion? Is he not, as Mr. Gandhi says, having a chokehold on you, forcing you to buy American products?
Zaka, let me address your second part first. When, as in the clarification today, it is very clear that India will work towards purchasing $500 billion. But over the next 5 years, the possibilities are anyway enormous. The total trade is likely to expand by at least twice that number. I will give you some data. In just the last 4 years, India manufactured mobile phones exported to US have earned revenues to the extent of roughly $20 billion. This is how we have created opportunities. But obviously the Congress party is cynical everywhere. The Congress party does not believe the ability in the aptitude and the abilities of Indians. When we talk about data localization, every expert would tell you that is going to be immensely beneficial to Indian IT companies. But obviously Rahul Gandhi has a different theory. He feels that we are compromising, on our data. He feels that will harm our IT industry. So how do you deal with a person whose politics now borders on lunacy and, irreversible cynicism?
Okay.
He has been concocting, he has been misrepresenting every detail in the budget. Now, when it comes to Russian oil, our stand has been very clear. Our sovereignty will not be impinged. And besides, let me also tell you that 3 years ago, India's purchase of Russian oil was to the tune of 2 to 3% of our total oil. So it's purely market forces, it's purely market factors which dictate that decision.
So, Mr. Srinivasan, this whole thing about compromising
Can you allow me to speak, Zaka?
This compromising India's interests. In 2008, I'm asking you a question, sir. Let me finish my question. In 2008, the Manmohan Singh government, Dr. Manmohan Singh staked his government. It went to a majority vote. It went to a no-trust vote in the parliament on the Indo-US nuclear deal. In the Indo-US nuclear deal, it was explicitly said that India has committed to separate its military and civil activities and submit its entire civil nuclear program to international inspections. Was there not a sellout?
It was not a sellout because in most of the world, and as this government has passed a Shanti bill recently, all your civilian sector is going to be opened up to the corporates. So you are going to have foreign investment in it.
No, that's not the same thing as inspection, please. Again, investment, inspection, not the same thing. No, you speak, sir, but...
Your claim on the market is patently false. For 2 years, markets have not gone anywhere. The market hit a high of 26,300 about 15 months back. For 15 months, the market has been operating between 25,000 and 26,500, while the rupee has plummeted from 71 to 92. So you have, in dollar terms, in the last 2 years, the Indian investor has lost terribly. Your foreign investors have left India because the valuations are too high, and they have lost money in dollar terms. The rupee has been the most weakest currency for all these years. The agreement does not talk anything about our software services. The European agreement talks about protection for software services and visa requirements. There is no talk of H1B. The most important export from India to US is software services. There is no talk. We have been spineless. We have not brought up the H1B. We could have said we will not do any deal with you till you bring down the H1B fees to $10,000. It still stays at $100,000.
Sir, this is a trade agreement on goods and merchandise. This is not a trade agreement on services.
But Europe, you had services. Europe, you had
No,
services.
so each
You
deal
get to
stands
choose.
on its own
That
merit.
is exactly why. That is exactly. That is why we said you surrendered. You did what Trump
Mr.
wanted to do.
Sajjanar,
You did not
nothing on
stand up for your
H1B, nothing
services.
on software
Your
services.
services.
You could have used that as
Services.
leverage, is what the Congress
Zaka,
spokesperson is
please listen
contending.
to me.
No, you
Services
see,
is not because they
Zaka, you are very right. You know,
We
this
have
does not
surrendered.
deal with services. This deals with only trade in goods.
You are not
This is
even
not a free trade
negotiated
agreement.
one
This is
bit of
only an
advantage
interim
on your
bilateral
services.
agreement.
So,
Even the
if you do
full-fledged
not
bilateral
protect your
trade agreement
services,
will be decided
and
later
if
on. The agreement with the EU, European
the
Union, was a
services
free trade
export is
agreement,
much higher
as
than
are
the
the FTAs
manufacturing
with many
exports.
of the other
So you have
countries,
not even done
with UK
anything
that we
to
have
protect your
signed, with New
services
Zealand,
exports at all.
etc.
So what are we
Those are
talking?
all FTAs. This is not an FTA.
Okay.
As far as Russian oil is concerned, Zaka, if you permit, you know what we have said very clearly again at the Parliamentary Foreign Relations Committee. Vikram Misri, the Foreign Secretary, was there, and he said very categorically that the companies will go out and they will decide on the basis of pricing, on the basis of quality, on the basis of geopolitical situation.
Okay.
And that is what they have done. So, you know, if it has been coming down a little bit, it is because of the decision that those companies have taken. As far as the 500 billion thing is concerned, you know, you mention, and also it is stated, it's not a commitment, it is a
Intends to.
it's an
Intends to, yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
But also, if you look at the 13th February, you know, when Prime Minister Modi was in Washington DC last year, the two sides decided that by 2030 we will have a bilateral trade volume of $500 billion. And if that is going to be there, and if it's going to be balanced trade, as Mr. Trump would like it to have, that means in that year you are already having $250 billion worth of exports from US to India, and $250 billion of export from India to the US.
Okay.
So, you know, the opportunities in
It's
terms
definitely
of
there.
data
No
centers,
doubt about it. Yeah.
GPU,
Aircraft, etc.
they are
Yeah.
huge
I'll
opportunities.
give Mr. Bagga the final word. Again, what investors, particularly in the market, are looking for is, does this now stem the tide? Will FPIs, FIIs find India more interesting in terms of valuation? Will that money that has gone out of India in the last year and a half come back? Will the slide of the rupee be arrested?
Yeah, Zaka, it's a very known fact that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. We have come back on the table. We were given punitive tariffs. It has happened in Korea. Both political parties sat together and figured out how do we deal with Trump. It's happened in Japan, which is such a divided polity where they all sat together in national interest. That's what I would say the economy is looking at the politicians to do, to take a broader view. As far as the economics is concerned, Zaka, it improves the sentiment immensely. India is on the table again. That's a very big thing. You were singled out for 50%. Somebody like Switzerland got 39% tariffs. Their president went and did all the negotiations, got back to 15% of EU. We have reached 18%. It's not a full stop at 18. The things will keep changing. Things will improve also. And right now, bringing in services was not in our interest because it's a very lopsided. If you look at the services deficit, it becomes very huge.
Okay.
And there are enough MAGA hawks who are looking at that.
Correct.
It was not in our national interest to combine the two. We have done the goods one. Let's make that work. Let's see how good our trade works out. Then we look at services over time.
Okay.
One more thing, Zaka. What we are missing today, Russia, there was a Reuters report, Zaka, 23 lakh workers are needed in Russia. 23 lakh. Indian construction workers, 71,000 have gone last year. I would say we should have passed something in parliament today that skill our workers to go to Russia. Imagine if 20 lakh youth of UP were sent to Russia and they started sending FX back. These are the kind of things. Japan has asked us for 3 lakh workers. We are not able to supply them. These are the political dialogues that the country is looking for.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll end on that note. That's a great note that Mr. Bagga ended our discussion on, that at the end of the day, whichever government is in power has to look out for the interests of our people. And I think the government has said that that has been their foremost and overriding concern. They've got what they believe is a fair deal, an equitable deal, And as Mr. Bagga said, we're back on the table now. India is a place where you can do business. Indian exports are now competitive. At 50%, they were uncompetitive. They were not simply there in the market. Right now, they're back in the competitive phase, and it is up to our exporters to continue exporting to the US, to UK, Europe, etc., and to take that story forward. I want to get an American perspective on this. Everett Eisenstadt is a former Deputy Assistant to the President of International Economic Affairs and Deputy Director of the National Economic Council in President Donald Trump's first term. Thank you very much, Mr. Eisenstadt, for speaking with us. Now, in the context of this trade deal, do you think that this resets the relationship? Could the tariffs have been lower than 18%? Today, the Indian Parliament debated this issue, and the opposition parties here have criticized the government of the day, saying that this is a complete sellout to America. How will you speak to that political attack or to that concern that's been raised here?
Well, I think it's important to keep the agreement in context. I mean, the alternative is to have maintain the higher tariff rates of 25% and potentially the additional 25%. And I think that can be impactful on the Indian export markets. And obviously, I think 18% would be preferred over the higher rate. So I don't really think there's an opportunity to reduce the rate below much below that. So I don't think this is I think this is a good agreement. It's an interim agreement and one that will lead to continued dialogue, which I believe is very important for the U.S.-Indian relationship.
Is the United States trying to pressurize India into cutting Russian oil to try and force President Putin's hand and trying to get him to end the Ukraine war? Again, there's concern and criticism here that India has given up its energy security to America. It's America that is deciding who India buys oil from, and thereby this is a direct infringement on India's energy security. How will you respond to that?
I can't reconcile those two perspectives. I think that the administration's been very clear that this is removal of the 25% tariff is contingent upon stopping purchases of Russian oil. But that's something the two governments need to work through. And it's obviously, as you note, that's a choice of the Indian government. If they choose not to buy Russian oil, that's their choice. If they choose to buy it, then they do. That's their choice as well. Of course, you do have the tariff out there that may apply to some additional imports from India, but that's a decision of the government.
Do you think at the end of the day this is a fair and balanced deal? It's a win-win for both sides. There's big concern on both sides, and you would expect it, on agriculture. Agriculture is one of the highly protected sectors here in India, some of which will now be opened up. But the opposition says it will hurt the Indian farmer. How do you see this as a former negotiator who sat on the table on sensitive issues like agriculture?
Well, we need to see. I think that a lot of the details of the agreement are still being worked out. My understanding is that there's a hope that the agreement will be finalized in March. So there's several weeks to work this out. I haven't seen the text actually, so we don't know, which products are covered and which aren't. So until we have that, I think it's hard to make a determination. I'm fairly confident that the Indian negotiators, having been at the negotiating table myself, I'm confident that they worked very hard to get the balance that they need to make this a politically solid agreement and one that can work for India. At the same time, the U.S. negotiators are going to be pursuing the same objectives. We've got some outstanding products that we export around the world. We'd love for Indian consumers to have access to those products. So I think it's balanced. We'll have to see, of course, when the text comes out, but I believe it should work in the interest of both of our countries.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Mr. Eisenstadt, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18 with your thoughts and perspective. Of course, the politics around the deal will continue. Let's shift focus to some domestic stories now. And Karnataka Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, he's seen as the tallest Ahinda leader who represents the backward communities, the backward classes, who represents marginalized sections. But are Dalits and tribals getting a raw deal in Karnataka? CNN News 18 has managed to access documents which indicate that fund allocations to 7 SC/ST development corporations have been declining or stagnant during Siddaramaiah's time as Chief Minister. Even as heads of various boards and corporations were given cabinet rank. We ran that story just a few days ago. I think there's more members who have cabinet or MOS rank as chairpersons of various boards or commissions or corporations, etc. And the perks have gone up for all of these people than even MLAs. Budgetary support for welfare corporations linked to SC/ST communities have seen a downward trend.
Once they have declared the 5 guarantees, so we want to get money for that 5 guarantees. Regarding that case, slightly it has been decreased in some board and corporations, but not so much. There is no so much disparity, but I think there's small disparity is there.
Okay, let's go for a straight face-off on this. GS Prashant, spokesperson of the Karnataka BJP, Bhavya Narasimhamurthy, spokesperson of the Congress in Karnataka. Bhavya, let me start with you first. I want to go through one or two big SC/ST welfare schemes under the Siddaramaiah government. The biggest one, of course, is the B.R. Ambedkar Development Corporation. The allocation in 22-23, when the BJP was in power, was 218 crores. In 23-24, after Mr. Siddaramaiah came to power, the allocation got reduced to 107 crores. Karnataka Adijambava Corporation, 22-23, BJP government allocation 148 crores. 23-24 allocation 105 crores. 25-26 allocation 89 crores. So for major SC/ST welfare corporations, boards, etc., schemes, etc., the allocations have been coming down. How do you explain that, ma'am?
So you're talking about the corporation, right? We have an act, and Karnataka was the first state to actually, implement this kind of an act and bring it up. And other than Karnataka, it's only Telangana and Andhra Pradesh who have this. It's called Karnataka Scheduled Caste Sub-Allocation and Tribal Sub-Allocation Planning, Allocation and Utilization of Financial Resources Act 2013, which was brought about when Siddaramaiah was the chief minister for the first time. According to this act, the state in every budget is going to allocate the funds in proportion to the population of the SC/ST community. So this is the first time in the history of the country any state has made anything like this. Now, you might say that one of the corporations or some of the corporations have got lesser amount, in allocation. But that depends on each year and the projects that these corporations have come up with. If you see overall, every year, the funds that has been allocated for SC/ST community, during the previous BJP government, in 4 years, they had allocated 1.1 lakh crore. But Congress government in 3 years, just the past 3 years, we have spent 1.2 lakh crores. So when you see the overall budget kept for SC/ST community, it is definitely better than what BJP had.
But ma'am, tell me something. You are saying that, it is in proportion to the population. So the allocation is going down means there can be only one conclusion, that the population is going down. No, one second. Let me finish.
When it comes to SC/ST, there are corporations, there is ministry.
No, I haven't finished. You said that as per that act, it's allocated as per population. If the allocation is coming down, then that means only one thing, that the population is coming down. Are you saying that the SC/ST population in Karnataka is coming down?
I am saying the allocation for the population of SC/ST has not come down in total. There are many corporations, many boards, and also the ministry.
Okay.
When you take the total
I gave you two examples, right? Let me give you a few more examples.
Definitely more than BJP's
hear me out.
spending.
Well, let me give you a few more examples. And these are drastic cuts. These are not 1 or 2 crore difference cuts, These are drastic cuts. Karnataka Bhovi Development Corporation. 22-23, when BJP was in power, allocation was 103 crores. 23-24, when Mr. Siddaramaiah comes to power, allocation is 55 crores. It's straight away reduced to half.
That's what I'm saying.
Safai Karmachari.
Now
hear me, please hear me.
You need to see the whole total.
Safai Karmachari Development Corporation. 22-23 allocation was 55 crores. 23-24 allocation is 40 crores. Have the number of Safai Karmacharis in Karnataka come down?
No.
Then why is the allocation coming down?
We all know there is a ministry dedicated to social welfare, which deals with the communities, right? You need to take the whole budget, the corporations and the ministry in total. Then you see what the BJP spent for 4 years is lesser than what the Congress spent in the past 3 years.
Take a holistic picture. You can't look at individual corporations.
Because it depends on the
holistic
projects.
Picture. Siddaramaiah government has spent more money on SC/STs in 3 years than your government spent in 4 years.
Zaka, firstly, they are still yet to come out and answer that what happened to 25,000 crores, that is 11,000 in the first year and 14,000 in the second year, belonging to SCP TSP, which is earmarked for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe development, which they have diverted for other guarantee schemes, which the Congress government has on record admitted that they had diverted because their contention was that even the SC/STs are beneficiaries in the guarantees. So though the act does not permit, they have diverted 25,000 crores over 2 years. They have diverted for other activities. The second point, why is the allocation going down? The mathematics is simple. You have 125 Congress workers being given the cabinet status, which means it will come with a lot of expenses on its own. You need to give him an office, you need to give him a driver, vehicle, etc., etc.
So exact number is 100, 136. Prashant, 1 second.
The money has to be diverted.
136 MLAs, 149 cabinet or minister of state ranks. There are more Minister of State and Cabinet ranks than there are Congress MLAs. That's the number. There you go. That's the number.
Exactly, Zaka, which is why when you appoint so many people to the corporations and boards and guarantee committees, where will the money come from? The money comes from the taxpayers' kitty, and Karnataka taxpayers' money is being used for all these Congress workers being as a rehabilitation for Congress workers. And if that is not sufficient, they have probably used money which ought to have been spent for SC/ST welfare on their own party workers. So this depicts how Rahul Gandhi's Khatakat model is working here.
So
they really don't believe in empowerment of SC/STs.
So Bhavya, so you have basically used SC/ST money to make chairman of corporations and chairman of boards.
See, I'm just giving you one very simple fact. What BJP government, your government, spent for the SC/ST community for the past for the 4 years that you ruled was 1.1 lakh crore. What the Congress government, the present one, has spent for the past 3 years, it was in rule, is 1.2 lakh crores.
No, you've made this data point before. You've made this data point.
Comparison.
Can
why
you,
ma'am,
can you please explain why you have more ministers of cabinet or ministers of state rank than you have number of MLAs? Can we play that graphic again, please? Yeah. Why do you have that?
When we have a whole act earmarked to make sure that SC/ST community are, even in the finances, even in the budget, it is according to their population proportion.
But ma'am, again I asked you, the allocation is going down. Does it mean population is going down? No. Again, you're making the same point, ma'am.
If you want to,
BJP
then it's always welcome. If you want to criticize the act of the government in providing the Minister of State, that's a totally different issue. But connecting that to this, we have spent more than the BJP
the BJP spokesperson made this charge. It's a charge you have to rebut, that money for SC/ST has gone instead to the chairman of corporations and boards.
That's what I'm saying. We have spent more than you did. For the past 4 years, what you did, we have spent it in just 3 years. We have spent more than you for the community. How can you even say something like that? How can you actually bring that one this?
Everybody agrees that
Siddaramaiah has borrowed. You tell me, okay, all I'm saying,
in record numbers, there is no dispute that Siddaramaiah has not borrowed.
Every state borrows. Do you even know how much Narendra Modi has bought? Okay, let's talk about borrowing. Let's talk about borrowings, Prashant. Let's talk about borrowing.
1,70,000 crores is what you're
Very good point, Prashant.
So therefore,
very good, Prashant.
No, it's not about very good.
I'll give you one more fact. I'll give you one more fact.
For guarantee schemes, and the money that ought to have been spent on SC/ST welfare and SC/ST corporations have been used.
No, but she is rebutting that. Prashant, she is rebutting that. She is saying that is not the money diverted to ministers and cabinet.
Where is the taxpayers' money?
She's saying they have spent more on SC/ST.
You had the housing
than you did.
You had
for
the
4 years. We have spent
Where
it
is
in
the
3
money going?
years.
Where is the taxpayers' money? The prices of every essential commodity has gone up.
Okay.
Right from milk, the hospital OPD charges, to the stamp duty, every price of every essential commodity that hits the common man has gone up. You're fleecing the people of Karnataka by new taxes. Yet, You are
So-
not able to fulfill the promises made to the people.
Cess
And
is high.
divert SC money
Petrol
Prashant was
excise
speaking about
is
borrowing.
high. State taxes
Can I please talk
on
about it?
fuel and
Prashant
alcohol
is
are high.
talking-
Prices of essential
Prashant,
commodities are
can I
high.
please
All of
speak?
this, yes,
Can I please
yes,
speak?
yes. But your
Yeah.
final word, yeah. have to wrap
Prashant
up.
was talking about the borrowings. When Narendra Modi came to power in 2014, India's borrowing was 55 lakh crores. Like for the past this many years since independence, India's borrowing was 55 lakh crores. And today India's borrowing is 220 lakh crores. In the past 11 years, 12 years. That he was in
last 3
power.
years is
And you were
33
talking about
lakh crores,
borrowing.
Bhavya.
Okay.
You have no
Okay,
idea
I got to
what
wrap up.
happened
Thank you very
before
much
even
to
you
GS
know,
Prashant and
because
Bhavya
Congress is-
Nandamurthy. Thank you very much. Hopefully the people of Karnataka will get better answers from their government on this question. US President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are all set to meet tonight at the White House. This meeting comes even as tensions continue to rise across the Middle East and negotiations are intensifying over curbing Iran's nuclear program. Now, Netanyahu is expected to press Trump to pursue a deal that would not only halt Iran's uranium enrichment, but also cut down its ballistic missile program, as well as stop its support for terror proxy groups like Hamas and Hezbollah. But does Trump have a role for Netanyahu in mind, or will Israel be elbowed out by America and its Gulf Arab allies? Or will Trump simply cut Netanyahu and Israel out of the Iran deal? I'd dig a little deeper. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in the United States this week ahead of his meeting with US President Donald Trump in the White House. The meeting aims to discuss potential military actions against Iran with President Trump as Israel prepares contingency plans in case the US-Iran negotiations fail. Under the mediation that happened in Oman, American and Iranian officials met last week in Muscat, but no breakthrough came of those talks. But it did avert the immediate possibility of an all-out war, at least for now. This will be the 7th meeting between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu since the start of Trump's second term. White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levin announced that the US President will meet with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, and the discussion between both countries is expected to focus on energy security as well as deregulation. They will also have to thrash out the next steps in Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan.
As you know, we have a massive flotilla right now going over to Iran. We'll see what happens. I think they want to make a deal. I think they'd be foolish if they didn't. We took out their nuclear power last time, and we'll have to see if we take out more this time.
Before heading out to Washington, Netanyahu said that he planned to convey Israel's position on US nuclear talks with Tehran during the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. Israel has been concerned that it is getting elbowed out of the conversations between America and Iran by other Gulf Arab allies of Washington. Initially, the talks were supposed to happen in Istanbul, and regional Arab players like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Qatar were also supposed to join in. But that plan got scuttled. Israel remains skeptical that the nascent negotiations between America and Iran will succeed, and if it does, then it changes the security architecture of the Middle East, and Israel is concerned that its security interests may get compromised as a result. Therefore, it's pressing to ensure that Israeli interests are protected, as well as to preserve Israel's freedom of military action under any potential agreement between Washington and Tehran. Meanwhile, it's also being reported that Netanyahu plans to present Trump with fresh intelligence on Iran's military capabilities, according to a CNN report. Before departing for Washington, Netanyahu said that Iran is the first and foremost issue on the agenda for his meeting with President Trump at the White House.
בנסיעה הזאת אנחנו נדון בשורה של נושאים, עזה, האזור, אבל כמובן בראש ובראשונה במשא ומתן עם איראן. אני אציג בפני הנשיא את התפיסות שלנו לגבי העקרונות במשא ומתן, העקרונות החשובים, ובעיניי הם עקרונות חשובים לא רק לישראל, אלא לכל מי שבעולם רוצה שלום וביטחון במזרח התיכון. תודה רבה לכם.
But Iran is not keeping quiet either. A former IRGC chief issued a stark warning that Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu could ignite World War III if the international community fails to stop them. Tensions have been escalating between Iran and the United States, which have been somewhat doused by last week's talks, but it's still not off the table. Mohsin Rezai compared the two leaders, that's Trump and Netanyahu, to Hitler and Genghis Khan, accusing them of unprecedented crimes and pushing the world towards a global catastrophe. Another senior Iranian figure, Mohammad Javad Larijani, threatened that any American strike would bring massive US casualties on the roots of American interests across the Middle East. This was an open threat to America's dozens of military bases in the Middle East. The warnings follow indirect US and Iran talks in Oman and a major US naval buildup, including the deployment of one of the largest carrier strike groups, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Trump, in fact, has called it a beautiful armada, which is amassed off the Persian Gulf. But in ground zero at Iran's Isfahan nuclear complex, things have suddenly gone quiet, just as war fears are climbing. New satellite images show tunnel entrances buried, defenses have been reinforced, and heavy vehicle activity has gone. Analysts are warning that fortifications like this look like preparation for fresh American or Israeli strikes, especially after Tehran claimed unexploded American bunker busters were still inside its nuclear sites. At the same time, 400 kilos of highly enriched uranium has remained unaccounted for, even as Iran has offered to dilute 60% stock in return for full relief from sanctions. With jets and battleships moving and talks in Oman, the next move from either side is far from clear. But that is not all that will keep Trump and Bibi busy. They will also have to deal with winding down the war in Gaza. The United States is demanding that Hamas surrender all its weapons and will allow the terrorist group only to keep some small arms. An American team led by Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, and Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Special Envoy for the region, they intend to share this weapons giving up document with Hamas within the next few weeks. If that plan is presented to Hamas and if Hamas accepts it, it would be a significant effort towards demilitarizing this terrorist group. It's a key part, a key element of Trump's 20-point peace plan for Gaza, which has formed the basis for the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. If Hamas does give up most of its weapons, it would be a major breakthrough in diminishing Hamas's monopoly on power in Gaza. Trump's Board of Peace is also expected to meet in Washington within the next few days. Israel and America's Gulf Arab allies are all members of the newly formed Board of Peace. Israel, though, is unlikely to withdraw its troops from Gaza before Hamas, as well as other terror proxies, lay down their arms in full. Israel also considers Hamas's vast underground tunnel network in Gaza as part of its military structure, and it has to be dismantled in its entirety. And without demilitarization, it will be difficult for Trump's new Board of Peace to bring about the next steps of this 20-point peace plan. The Middle East is poised on a razor's edge.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
We are also placing emphasis in animal husbandry, fisheries, to make sure that in every district you get the facilities for a veterinary surgeon, veterinary hospital, testing labs, so that animal husbandry can be given that priority immediately in the rural areas. So farmers or those who are not farmers who want to get into animal husbandry can also benefit. That is why these announcements for fishing sector, it goes along with money being put in for restoring 500 Amrit Sarovars, the waterways, and the particular waterway which has been, national waterway which has been announced, also has institutions of excellence along its course, along the course of the river, so that shipbuilding, boat building, particularly I mentioned this, the route in which the national waterway is being announced, which will end up covering all the mineral-rich parts of the country and linking up with Paradip or with Dhamra port, is passing through states where the Nishad log can become boat makers, and they're already experts in it. They can also teach people. They can become part of the Institute of Excellence, so that inland shipbuilding for transporting of huge logistical facilities will all have the support of the local experts who for generations have done this work. They can also benefit in this growth. Equally, ma'am, as I said, not just helping the MSMEs which are new, but also the old and legacy industries, 200 legacy clusters which have been known for decades as those places which supported MSME, and from there they produce and export. It can be any of them. It can be Ludhiana, it can be Jalandhar, or it can be Kanpur, or it can be centers near Bihar, it can be anywhere in Bengal. So any legacy cluster, 200, we have volunteered that it can be funded, upgraded, given the modern instruments, hardware, software that is required, we will be undertaking that. Other than also providing for girls' hostel in every district, so that girls do not hesitate to take up to science education, which requires long-term, long hours to be spent in the colleges and universities. All of them, not just the girls' hostel, but the training, the internship, and the kind of programs that we're looking at, education centers, are all with AI provisioning. So AI education is not anymore kept at elite levels. It's going to be available for all our young. So if I very quickly move to mention the numbers, madam. Gross tax receipts are at 44.04 lakh crore in this BE. It's about 8% more than what was in BE of RE of 25-26. 3.26 lakh crores more than the RE. And if I were to look at the total expenditure, madam, for 26-27, it's at 53.47 lakh crores, so much more than what we receive as tax receipts. The capital expenditure is at 12.22 lakh crores, which is 3.1% of GDP, and also 11.5% higher than the RE 25-26. Of this, I'm glad to say, on the recommendation of finance ministers from the states who met me before the budget preparation, which is a normal calendar event, which before every budget I meet up with the state finance ministers, on their recommendation and accepting their recommendation, capital expenditure grant that we grant, call it loan without interest for 50 years, which eventually would be equivalent to a grant, has been increased on their request to 2 lakh crores under SASCI, and that is very much for their capital expenditure. Many states have actually shown that some of the signature projects of their states have been completed over the years since 2021, when we have been giving them SASCI, 50 years interest-free capital expenditure, money which goes to the states. So with this, the effective capital expenditure, although I said capital expenditure is 12.2 lakh crores, the effective capital expenditure, which includes grants that I give to the states as well, is 17.1 lakh crores, which is 4.4% of the GDP, which goes only to build in